Let's speak to Henry Newman now. He's director of Open Europe, an independent policy think tank. Henry, thanks for joining us. And what did you make of what Theresa May had to say last night and the way she said it? Significant, of course, in terms of how it might influence MPs to vote next week, if indeed meaningful vote 3 happens next week on her deal.
Right, good morning. Yeah, I think actually if you were sitting at home and watching that on the news last night, you probably would have been nodding along to it. Most of the people I speak to outside of politics, whatever their views on the referendum, do want MPs to come to some sort of decision. I don't think there's a huge desire for more politics, another election. Some people want a second referendum, but it's not a sort of majority of the public. The problem is, to get a solution to Brexit, to find a deal and to find support for that deal, requires getting MPs in Parliament behind us to vote for it. And I think that audience will have listened to the speech yesterday and been very, very annoyed on two different sides. The Labour MPs that she needed to back her deal found it arrogant and rude, and we saw sort of key Labour moderates who might be prepared to back a version of Brexit coming out last night and saying how angry they were with it. And on the other side, for her Eurosceptic critics on her own backbenches, they didn't hear what they wanted. They heard a Prime Minister basically saying that there's a path to no deal, which of course many of them want.
You say there isn't a majority for another referendum, but we don't know that definitively, do we? Because Theresa May hasn't allowed indicative votes or hasn't encouraged the process by which indicative votes might take place for other scenarios. It's always been either her deal or no deal, and that increasingly is running out of road, isn't it?
First of all, it is obviously her deal, but it's also the European Union's deal. There's one deal that's been agreed with the 27 members of the European Union. That's her deal. So I think, yes, it's her deal, but it's also the deal. So if you don't want this deal, then you need to be honest about the fact that you're talking about either no Brexit or leaving without a deal. And there
so given that there was clearly so much division around the deal, her deal, the European deal, shouldn't Theresa May, at an earlier point in this process, have allowed other options to be voted on just to see where she could get a majority?
I think she should have worked across Parliament from the very beginning, and especially after she lost her majority in 2017 in the general election 2 years ago. Yes, but ultimately now, that's a different point to where is there a majority in the Commons. We have actually seen a series of votes on a second referendum. We've seen votes on a customs union. We've seen votes on a Norway-style relationship. All of those have been defeated. And what we're seeing from the other... So Theresa May's got plenty of problems and has been handling things very badly in lots of different ways. But we've also seen the Labour Party demand cross-party talks yesterday and then walk out of those cross-party talks because Chuka Umunna was there, a former Labour MP, now a member of the Independent Group. We've seen the Labour Party support a second referendum nominally, but then vote against it in a division in the House of Commons. And the Labour Party are calling for a customs union when there already is one at the heart of the deal, and it's called the backstop.
And we know there are divisions everywhere. There are divisions within the Conservatives, there are divisions within Labour. That is the nub of this problem and why we're here, I guess, just 8 days to go until Brexit without any settled deal. But let's talk about the here and now and next week and what is possible. I mean, do you really believe that Theresa May can get this deal through? And if not, what happens next? Do you think Europe will then offer a longer extension of some sort?
I think Europe will definitely will not refuse an extension because they won't want to be in a position where they're ultimately blamed for no deal. So I think that whatever happens, we're likely to get an extension, which means that we won't be facing no deal in 9 days' time. Although I accept that this is incredibly difficult for lots of people sitting at home watching this and really worried about what's happening at a moment of sort of serious national crisis. So this is extremely uncomfortable. But I think that the vote next week is likely to fail again unless the Prime Minister changes tack. And what I think she needs to do to convince her own backbenchers, both on the Leave side but also the Remain side, is to set out a timetable for her own departure. Because for them, the policy problem has been also linked to a personal problem with her leadership. She's now essentially lost the confidence of a lot of her own MPs. And I think that what they want is the confidence that a different Prime Minister will take forward the next stage of the negotiations. Now, that might be unfair because, of course, if she gets a deal through, she will be a comeback queen, a hero in some respects, who delivered Brexit through a hung parliament with deeply divided opinions on both sides. But I think they are saying very clearly that they want the confidence that a different leader will take the party and take the country forward for another phase of the negotiations.